Level 1. The journey begins. You are only 17 when this happens. You signed the papers with your parents' signature on the line next to yours because you weren't old enough to sign alone. You didn't care. You'd been waiting for this since the moment you decided, and the deciding happened long before the signing. Parris Island, South Carolina, or San Diego if you're from west of the Mississippi. Either way, the moment that bus stops and the door opens, the world you came from is over.
A drill instructor boards the bus before you can stand up. He doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't need to. His voice fills the entire vehicle like it was built for that specific purpose. You are on your feet before your brain tells your legs to move. The first 72 hours have a name, the receiving period. That name does not prepare you for what it actually is. You get your head shaved, you get uniforms, you get gear, you stand in lines, you move in groups. You are told exactly where to put your feet, when to breathe, when to look, and where. You had a personality when you arrived. They are systematically removing it, not to destroy it, to rebuild it into something that can function under conditions your old self could not survive.
The drill instructors are not human in the way you understood human before this. They operate at a frequency you have never encountered. There are 3 of them assigned to your platoon. The senior DI speaks to you maybe twice in the first week. The other 2 are everywhere all the time, and their voices are inside your head even when the barracks is quiet. The physical part starts immediately. You run, you do push-ups in the sand, you do mountain climbers until your arms are not arms anymore, just 2 burning things attached to your shoulders. You do it all again the next day. The sand on Parris Island gets into everything. Your boots, your eyes, the back of your throat. You will taste that sand in your sleep for years. The crucible comes at the end of training. 54 hours, 48 miles of marching, food rationed to 2 MREs for the entire event, sleep measured in minutes. Every physical and mental skill you've been building for 12 weeks is tested simultaneously in the dark and the rain and the mud. You finish it. The eagle, globe, and anchor is placed in your palm by your senior drill instructor. His voice is different in that moment. Not soft, just real. He says, "You are now a United States Marine." You are holding a small piece of metal, and it weighs everything.
Before we go any further, if you are a Marine, a veteran, someone in boot camp right now, or someone with the decision sitting in front of you, tell us where you're watching from, tell us your rank, tell us what the crucible felt like at hour 40, tell us what it meant when that emblem landed in your hand. No one is going to judge you here. Like and share this video, subscribe, and remember, this story is built to show you that the making of a Marine never really stops.
Level 2. Private First Class. Emerging Marine. The fleet is different from boot camp, the way the ocean is different from a pool. You know how to march. You know how to follow orders. You know the history and the ethos and the rank structure. What you don't know yet is how any of it actually works when the structure is real and breathing and full of Marines who have been places you haven't. MOS School First, Military Occupational Specialty. Yours is 0311, Infantry Rifleman, the oldest job in the Corps. You learn to live with your rifle the way you used to live with your phone. It is always within reach. You know its weight without looking. You break it down and reassemble it in the dark until the motion lives in your hands and not your head.
Your first unit is a grunt battalion. You check in, find your squad bay, and immediately understand that you are the newest and therefore the lowest thing in the building. Not cruelly, just factually. You carry more gear on patrols. You pull more duty. You get the worst hours of every watch rotation. You do it without complaint, because complaining is a language that nobody in this building is fluent in. Field exercises start. You live in a dirt for days at a time. You learn how cold a night in the field gets when your body is already depleted and your sleeping system is wet. You learn how to eat fast and sleep faster. You learn that your feet are a system that requires maintenance the way an engine does, and if you ignore them, the whole machine breaks down. The work is physical in a way that is total. It is not exercise, it is occupation. Your body becomes a tool that belongs to the mission first and to you second. You stop thinking of soreness as a problem. It is just information. Information that tells you you're still in it. You are still in it. Every day.
Level 3. Lance Corporal. Proving yourself. You're 20. You have a deployment behind you now. It changed the shape of things in a way that is hard to explain to someone who hasn't had it happen to them. The world looks the same from the outside. Something behind your eyes is different. Afghanistan, Helmand Province. Your squad patrolled the same stretch of road for 7 months. The dust there is a specific color you have never seen anywhere else. Fine and pale, and it gets into everything. Your lungs, your gear, the creases of your hands. You will wash that dust off your skin for years and still find it somewhere. The patrols were long and heavy, 60, 70 pounds of gear, every step calculated, every piece of ground read before your boot touches it. You learned how to look at a road and see it the way it wanted to be seen and the way it actually was. Those are 2 different things, and the gap between them is where people get hurt. You saw people get hurt. You don't talk about it much, not because you were told not to, because the words available to you don't match what happened.
The things that words can hold and the things that actually happened are not the same size. You came home, you shook some hands, you slept in a real bed. You lay awake in that real bed and listened to the quiet, and the quiet was the loudest thing you'd ever heard. But you got up the next morning, you put on your uniform, you went back to work, not because you were told to, because the work is the only thing that makes sense. The structure of it, the purpose of it, the fact that it matters in a way that is not abstract. You are starting to understand what it means to be a Marine, not the ceremony of it, the actual weight of it. The thing you signed up for when you were 17 with your parents' signature on the line. It's heavier than the emblem, and you are carrying it.
Level 4, Corporal, leading by example. You're 22, you have a fire team now, 4 Marines. They are yours to lead, train, and bring home. That last part is the one that changes everything. Before this, the mission was the mission. You executed, you followed. You did your job and trusted the people above you to do theirs. Now, you are the person below someone else is trusting. Your 4 Marines go where you tell them. They move how you train them. They make decisions shaped by what you've taught them. That is a different weight than anything in your gear. Leadership at this level is not a title. It is a posture. It is being the first one up and the last one down. It is never letting them see the moment of doubt, not because the doubt isn't real, but because doubt is expensive, and you can't let it cost them anything.
A second deployment. Iraq this time. Ramadi. Urban. Tight streets. Buildings that all look the same from the outside and are all different on the inside. Every room a question. Every doorway a decision. You lead your team through it. Every patrol, every clearance, every position you hold in the dark while the city makes sounds around you that you've learned to read like a language. There is a moment on a rooftop at 0400 when the city is still and your 4 Marines are positioned and the sky is just beginning to change color at the edge. You look at them, each face, each set of eyes watching their sector the way you trained them to watch. You don't say anything. There's nothing to say. But something in that moment settles inside you, like weight finding its right place. This is what you were built for.
Level 5, Sergeant, battle-tested leader. You're 25, a squad now, 13 Marines. You are responsible for all of them in ways that go beyond the tactical. Their training, their readiness, their heads, the thing behind their eyes that you've learned to read because you've worn the same look yourself. Third deployment, Fallujah. The city has been fought over so many times, the buildings have layers of damage, like rings in a tree. You can read the history of it in the walls if you know how to look. Your squad moves through it like water, efficient, quiet, practiced. You've drilled every entry, every formation, every contingency, until the movement is automatic. Automatic is what keeps people alive when the thinking part of the brain is overwhelmed by what's actually happening.
Contact comes on a Tuesday afternoon on a street that looks like every other street. It always looks like every other street. You run the squad through it. Suppress, flank, communicate. The training does what training is supposed to do. It replaces panic with procedure. Your Marines move the way they've been trained to move, and the training holds. And when it's over, everyone is accounted for. In the debrief, you go through every second, not to assign blame, to find the gaps, the moment where the communication was half a second slow, the position that was slightly wrong. You are looking for the thing that almost happened, so it doesn't happen next time. There will be a next time. There is always a next time. You write the report that night. You are precise and specific, and you do not soften anything. The report is a tool. Tools need to be accurate, or they don't work. You send it up the chain, and then you go clean your rifle, and then you sleep. Tomorrow is another patrol.
Level 6, Staff Sergeant, seasoned operator. You're 29. Multiple squads fall under your oversight now. The math of your responsibility has grown. More Marines, more missions, more variables, more weight. You've been deployed 5 times. You've operated in 4 countries. You have a body that knows things your mind has almost stopped thinking about consciously. The way your shoulders drop before a breach. The way your breathing pattern changes when a patrol moves from routine to something else. Your nervous system has been tuned by years of this work into something that functions differently than it did when you were 17 on that bus. The missions are more complex at this level. Multi-element operations, coordinated timing. Objectives that require different teams to move simultaneously across different terrain and arrive at the same moment without seeing each other. You plan these the way a watchmaker builds something. Every piece has to fit, and the whole thing has to run without stopping. You've seen plans fail. You know what failure looks like at the operational level, and you know what it costs in weight that nobody writes in any report. You carry that weight like you carry everything else, silently, functionally, without letting it slow your step, because your Marines are watching your step,
and they're going to match it.
Level 7. Gunnery Sergeant. Master of the battlefield. You're 34. Gunny. That word means something specific in the Marine Corps. It isn't just a rank. It is a reputation built over years of doing the work at every level below it. The Marines who are new look at you the way you once looked at the men who wore this rank, like a fixed point, like something that will not move when everything else is moving. You manage a company-sized element now, over 100 Marines inside your sphere of direct influence. You know each of them, not just their names, their strengths and gaps, who performs better in the dark, who needs to hear a specific thing before an operation to lock in, who has something going on behind the performance that needs watching. You know these things because you watch, quietly and constantly and without making it obvious.
Sixth deployment, a sustained operation in a contested region. The tempo is high and unforgiving. Missions stack against each other with little recovery time. Equipment fails. Intelligence is sometimes wrong. The conditions on the ground do not match what the maps say, and the maps were already outdated before you got here. You hold the operational picture together through all of it, not through force of personality, through consistency, through being the person who already solved the problem before anyone else knew there was one, through never showing the seams. There are nights when the weight of it is total, when you lie on your rack and the ceiling tells you nothing useful, and the exhaustion is in your bones so deep that sleep doesn't reach it. You get up anyway. You have never not gotten up.
Level 8, First Sergeant, Legendary Mentor. You're 40, First Sergeant. You are the senior enlisted advisor to the company commander. You stand between the officer corps and the enlisted Marines. You translate both directions, what the command needs, what the Marines can actually do. That gap is real, and navigating it is a specific skill that takes years to develop, and most people never fully get there. You've been there for a long time. The Marines in this company are younger than your career. Some of them were in elementary school when you were on your first deployment. You don't think about that too long. It takes you somewhere unhelpful. What you think about is readiness. Is this unit ready? Ready means not just trained and equipped. It means the morale is real and not performed. It means the trust between Marines is load-bearing. It means the weakest element in the formation has been seen and addressed, and not just papered over on a report. You push the company through a sustained combat rotation, the kind that grinds, the kind where the days start bleeding into each other and the mission never fully ends. You walk the lines, every day. You look at faces, you look at equipment, you look at the space between Marines when they're standing next to each other, because that space tells you things about trust and cohesion that nothing on paper will. When something is wrong, you fix it before it becomes a failure. That is the whole job at this level. Prevention dressed up as presence.
Level 9, Sergeant Major, the battlefield legend. You're 49. There is no higher enlisted rank in the Marine Corps. You have been in this institution for 32 years. You have watched it from every angle. From the bottom looking up with nothing but confusion and determination. From the middle running toward the sound. From the top looking out over something so large and so complex that most people would see a machine where you see people. You've always seen people. That is in the end what the whole thing was built on. You advise commanders now, generals. You sit in rooms where decisions are made that will shape the careers and the lives, and in some cases, the deaths of Marines you will never personally meet. You carry that. You have been carrying weight for 32 years, and this is the heaviest form it has taken. You speak plainly in those rooms. You were not sent there to agree. You were sent there because you have seen what decisions look like when they land at the squad level. When they land on the corporal leading 4 Marines through a Felucia street, where the lance corporal carrying 60 pounds through helm and dust. You were the voice of that in rooms that need to hear it. You walk the bases when you're not in those rooms. You talk to the young Marines, not to inspect them, to know them, to let them see that the person advising generals was once a 17-year-old on a bus who didn't know what was about to happen to him. It happened. All of it happened.
And the thread that runs from that bus to this room has never broken. You think about that sometimes, about the unbroken thread, about how many times it should have broken and didn't, about what that means. You don't have a clean answer. You don't think there is one. You just know that every morning you put on the uniform and the eagle, globe, and anchor sits above your pocket, and the weight of it is real, and you earned every ounce of it. And so did every Marine whose name you know, and every Marine whose name you never learned, but whose face you still carry. That is the legend. Not a single act, not a single battle, just the showing up. 32 years of showing up. And you would do it again from the beginning without changing a single hard day. This story ends here, but the Marine Corps never does. This isn't a story about glory. It isn't about the medals or the battles or the things that make headlines. It's about the thing underneath all of that. The decision, made quietly by someone very young, to become something that would cost them enormously and give them back something no one else can give. If you are a Marine right now, if you are in boot camp,
If you are on your 6th deployment or your first field exercise, or standing a cold watch at 0300, wondering what any of this is for, hear this. The core doesn't make sense in the moment. It makes sense across the span of it, across the years, across the weight you accumulate and carry and eventually understand. You are not just a service member. You are a Marine. That word has meant something specific for over 200 years, and it means it because of people exactly like you, who kept showing up when showing up was the hardest thing available. Don't stop. Not today. Not when it gets heavier than this. You are the reason the line holds. That has always been the whole mission. Semper Filius.